Welcome to the Power of Lifting podcast. I'm EricCafferty, owner of the Mecca Gym. I am a strength and conditioning coach and a contest prep specialist. The focus of this podcast is to dive into the mindset and the drive of people who have done incredible things with their lives.
Truth be told, Steve, this is our first time doing a non-local, a non-in studio. So you're gonna pop our out of town cherry here, pal.
I'm honored.
Oh, good. So welcome the folks to the Power of Lifting podcast. And today we have Atlas, the balance extraordinaire, on with us out of where are you living these days, buddy?
Vancouver, Washington.
Out of Vancouver, Washington. So why don't you let the people of the Power of Lifting podcast know a little bit about yourself. So, if this is their first time hearing of you, what are you famous for? And what are some of your crowning achievements to date?
Wow. Okay. My name's Steve Atlas. I'm a sports kinesiologist. So I've been practicing as of the 15th of January, it will be 28 years in my career.
Wow.
So I've been doing this for a minute.
Lots of experience.
Yeah, I've been doing this a while. School was kind of necessary because originally I was on the path to become a physical therapist.
Right.
And in the internship of going into the graduate study stuff, I learned that I was a little bit too empathetic. I was taking on some of the pain of a lot of the people that I was treating. So I wanted to switch my studies going from physical therapy to kinesiology. It was actually an easy. And
I did the same thing, actually.
Yeah. So comparatively, from sports medicine, physical therapy, that was kind of my path originally. And now I've segued to the biomechanic world of movement. And so it's interesting. Social media is interesting just because I will go to an event and people are like, hey, and they'll say my name. And I'm like, I don't know who you are. So that's one of those things where I like meeting people as long as they're willing to kind of share who they are with me, to put a name and a face together. But I started doing these. So there's a couple different pieces of my profession. The one piece is I have this personal coaching system that I work with people privately one-on-one. Okay. So that constitutes the majority of where I make my bread and butter and take care of my family. Okay. The other side is I do these shows and I work in the NPC IFBB to do these guest performances and acrobatic balances. And so it's kind of a form of strength artistry, for lack of a better term. Requires a lot of strength, balance, and flexibility kind of all come together, which is also sort of the philosophy behind the Atlas method. So that constitutes a smaller amount of where I earn some of my income. And then the third last thing is continued education and doing workshops and seminars and mentorship for people who are already maybe a personal trainer or coaches and these kinds of things who want to learn things that are not necessarily all that conventional. And my entire life has been primarily, I was a gym rat. I was a weight room junkie. And I still am. I mean, I'm still very attached to the weight room. I don't think I'll ever get away from that. But about 35 years of age, I really started a completely different path in life, and that was the movement community. So, I didn't grow up as a gymnast. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm 220 pounds. So, most of those elite level gymnasts, they're 5 foot nothing and 100 and nothing, and
Right.
they can do amazing things. And so I really have no business doing this stuff. I was kind of born in this big body, but I've always kind of deviated toward the things that I'm amazed by, the body weight skill stuff.
Yeah.
And so my teachers were 100% body weight skill only. And I was kind of that guy where it's like, I don't know that this is impossible to blend the two worlds together if it's done correctly. Mm-hmm. And now there's some scalability here. There's going to be some steep learning curves, but if you come from a body weight culture coming into the weight room, it's a learning curve because you're going from a lot of integrated movements to a lot of isolated movements potentially. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty humbling for them, but nothing compared with the learning curve of trying to go upside down at 35 years of age when I first learned this stuff. And balancing on top of my hands for the first time. I mean,
that's incredible. That's incredible. So I want to back up a little bit into, your past, so from, when you were in high school, what was Steve Atlas like in high school? Were you a football player? Were you okay. Yeah. So let's hear a little bit about kind of where you got started with athletics.
Thank you. High school was a big football push for me. My friends did, I did it, and it was fast. I was able to run a 4.54 40. And
nice, pretty quick. Yeah, it's blazing.
I was and I was strong. I was very strong for my body weight. I was doing some really, at the time, I wasn't obviously as big as I am now. I was closer to about 175 to 180 pounds, but I was doing the clean and jerk lifts. In fact, you could letter in Olympic weightlifting, which I did at Franklin High School.
Cool. Nice.
I got really involved into the Olympic weightlifting, and then I segued that with the football, and I was just almost a complete explosive speed, explosive. Mm. And then after that, where I lived obviously changed because I was out of high school, but I never stopped doing any, I've always continued to lift throughout. So, but throughout that, during my high school years, I was also involved in the martial arts, and I was involved in, and later in life, I became involved in yoga and became a yoga teacher, and found that there's a lot of threads that tie together between yoga and the martial arts community. And there's an interesting thing actually between your weightlifting, your martial arts, and your yoga, and some of these different physical medias. And the more you do, and the longer you play this game, and by playing the game, I mean living this life, you do tie certain threads that are actually intersecting. And most people, the physical expressions are different, but your discipline is the same. Your commitment to the craft is the same. The learning curves are a little bit different, but when you take the same level of devotion to one practice to the next, you realize it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, so this is the thing that I wanted to kind of get to in the heart of these things. It's like people would say, well, I don't like to practice yoga because I'm not flexible, for example.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they deviate to maybe their strength training and that kind of a thing. And I'm not saying that you got to practice yoga. I'm just saying, if you took the same measure of hardcore discipline and you segued it, I'm not saying it could be martial arts, but if you took that mentality and you focused it, it is laser powerful. It is so super powerful. So this was one of the things that I kind of learned with time. I was like, oh, I just went from weightlifting to the martial arts, and then I put that into yoga. And now I've taken that and my balance craft, I've tied all of it together.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. So, I've seen you perform several times, most recently at the Idaho Cup here in Boise, which was absolutely incredible. You and Casey were fantastic. But I kind of want to paint the picture for people what it is that you are actually capable of now, put into words, because as we talk about these things, it's absolutely incredible what you do, but I kind of want to hear from your mouth, from in your words, what it is that you do and that you're capable of doing as part of these performances.
Wow, this is hard. This is hard because this is the part where I loathe people that aggrandize themselves.
Oh, dude, sure. Just blow it out of the water here, buddy.
Yep,
or
you've been given full permission.
Trust me, if you don't, I'll do it for you.
A dear friend of mine, IFBB pro Tangi Johnson, you probably heard of this fitness.
Yeah.
She said to me, "What I love about you, Steve, is you let others edify you." And that's just how I was raised. No matter how good I get, it's never going to be perfect enough.
And that's one of the biggest reasons why I wanted you on this podcast, because I respect that so much about you.
Right.
Oh, thank you. I try to live that, and I try to pass that on. It's like there's no ceiling to anything that we do. And that doesn't mean that you can't celebrate your achievements. It doesn't mean
absolutely.
It's just that we live in such such an interesting culture of patting ourselves on the back for every little thing, and it's like,
yeah.
And so you have to realize, so at the world class level, the people that have come into my life to teach me, these are people that I am in awe of. And so when your standard is beset on, perfectly doing something 10 out of 10 times in practice before it's remotely considered to go on stage, well, what does that mean? Well, it means you're training 6 to 8 hours every day of your life.
Yeah.
That's what. So when you talk about people, well, I train a lot. Okay, well, what does that mean when you train a lot? Well, I have to do my balance practice, and then I have to go do my stretching and flexibility work. And then after that, I got to do my strength training with weights.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to repeat this, cycle again and again. Now, once you've learned the skills, do you have to continue to do that? No, you don't have to continue to. But getting to that level, because remember, I did not start as a child. So the learning curve was really, really steep.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've learned to do various balances and various skill work and strength work with just my body weight. And it was humbling, because as much weight as I was pushing around in the gym, it was almost embarrassing how much muscle I had when I couldn't coordinate my own body. And I don't say that as a look, had I not been, so when you're not exposed to certain things, you don't know any better. So your culture around you paints the kind of environment that you want to get strong in. Look, if I go to Gold's Gym, for example, and I train in Gold's Gym, I'm going to be a product of Gold's Gym because the people around there, they're lifting heavy, maybe they're power lifters or they're squatters or strongmen or whatever it is, of which I can be a part, and I can actually celebrate in that culture. Having said that, I wanted to be the guy that could go into a full split no matter what direction it was, and push myself upside down as many times as I wanted to do, balance on one arm if I wanted to do this, bend my body in half going backwards if I want to. And then I wanted to be able to crush it in the gym also. Right. So that price tag demanded a certain measure of time and commitment and energy. Now, I will put out a little disclaimer for people that think, gosh, I would love to have that kind of scope. I'm a 48-year-old man. I do not have children. Okay. So the reason I say that is because if I did have children and how important family is to me, okay, my Casey is everything. My mother is everything. They're the two things in my world that I care and I will kill and protect at all costs. They are my number one thing. End of story. Okay. If I had kids, probably wouldn't be at the level that I'm at. And that's just being completely real. Why? Because I want to go to football games. I want to raise, I want to go to the ballpark, play with my kids. I want to teach them I want to do these things. So my child, for lack of a better term, has been this art.
Right.
And I share that publicly with you, and you get to appreciate it. And hopefully people draw some measure of inspiration, or they go, gosh, how can I learn some of that stuff? And that's when.
So tell us a little bit about what these things are that you're doing on stage. So you are doing handstands, you are doing various balancing acts.
Videos are incredible.
Yeah. So what are some of those things? What are some of those skills that you can perform? You're mentioning you can do the splits in any direction. So what are some of those feats that you do on stage?
And maybe what was the hardest one that you kind of came across for you?
Yeah. Well, there's a solo. I have a solo act and I have a duo act. And I, one is I prefer to do the duo act. And I think a good duo act trumps a great solo act. There is something when you are able to convey and communicate well with a partner, because before Casey, my flyer, Nikita, who was Russian, he came over from Russia. He's been living in the States for a long time, and he's since moved back with his wife and family. They live in England teaching elite level gymnasts. But Nikita and that was really the beginning for all of our super high levels of balancing. Legitimately, it was one of those things where if there was enough of the demand at the time, we would still be performing. And that's not a shot at Casey at all, because I love the fact that the woman that I'm in love with, right? I get to share something beautiful on stage in a performing arts way.
Right.
With Nikita, it was very powerful. It was very strength driven. With Casey, it's much more balanced. It's much more elegant and finesse. So it has a completely different energy that surrounds it. Mm-hmm. So handstands are a part of that. Being able to transition. It's not just what you can do. It's how you present it. Mm-hmm. So when I teach, like last night, I taught Cascade Balance. It's the gym that I work at. And once a week I go up and I teach this, and I have this class, and effectively they're all adults. No one that takes the class are kids. And I can connect with these people because, well, they're all adults, but there's something like, hey, I want to learn how to do the splits. Well, there's a methodical way to do that safely, and it's not going to happen overnight. Some people, and you know who these people are, some people don't have to train. And they're either just farm boy strong, who've never touched the weight before in their life. Some people are genetically hypermobile. They're super flexible. That doesn't mean they're strong within the flexibility, as you know. But there are people that are genetically predisposed. And I want to assume that the people that I'm training with all have to work so that learning curve doesn't get that. It's not going to get missed. We want to methodically take people's tissues at the joint, at the attachment point, the plasticity of these tissues. We want everything to come up systematically such that there's a safety factor. Because as a kid, you're kind of bulletproof and you're not thinking, and you're jumping off and stuff like that.
You're doing just fine.
If I ask somebody who's, I got a guy right now who's client of mine, 59 years old, and I'm teaching him. He's already done the 5 minutes of the 5 1-minute handstands against the wall. It's one of the protocols that I have because he really wants to learn how to handstand. And he's a taller guy. He's probably 6'3". Mm-hmm. And he's 59 years old. He goes, I really want to learn how to handstand. And much to his enthusiasm, he's making great strides. But I've given him these tiny little milestones along the way. And so he's about halfway there. And now he can start to believe that it's actually possible. It's going to happen. He believes it's going to happen. So here's this man who's almost 60 years old. Nobody in his life has ever said that you're going to be able to do this skill, except one guy who learned as an adult, who happened to be, in the presence of great teachers, is now saying, yes, you can. And we are,
That's
so
awesome.
Nice.
So this is a cool thing. And so this is after 28 years, have to understand, this is an important part. This is why I teach. Most people in their respective field of whatever they work in, they're doing it. It's a paycheck. It's a job. I do this because I'm on fire about doing what I see in my students doing.
Yeah.
There's these light moments. And let's say somebody in your gym, they're crushing it. They get a new PR in a bench, a squat, whatever the lift is. It's like, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay. But when you learn how to coordinate throwing your weight up, never having been in your hands as a child, going upside down and balancing and holding yourself solidly in a perfect line where everything is stacked and you're able to relax your breathing and you're able to have a conversation, my friend, that is a freedom of movement very few people will ever come to know.
Absolutely. So let me back things up just a little bit.
Sure.
You were say you were coming on to your early 30s and something went off inside you that said that you wanted to learn how to do this. Yeah. Explain to us kind of what happened to you, mentally, to want to go into this field. You explained you're a lifter, you got into, doing, yoga, and then you became, fascinated with the idea of this balancing, these movements, this, almost it's Cirque du Soleil-esque type, movements. So how did that manifest itself, and how did you pursue that? Who did you reach out to? What is the origin story of the Atlas movement, if you will?
I can say humbly, this is exactly what happened. My martial arts teacher, Christopher Charnos, who is a lifelong friend and mentor, and it's like an encyclopedia when it comes to the martial arts for me. Okay. What
specific martial arts were you doing?
The non-classical kung fu, and a lot of the knife work. Empty hand, stick, and knife. So Kali, Eskrima, Silat. It was, but it's a bladed, edged weapon, sort of. So not exactly ring friendly.
Okay.
Right. But he taught me some things, and he said, you might want to look into Capoeira. And I thought, I just didn't think much of it at the time, but I just kind of YouTubed, Capoeira, and I came across a video by who became my movement teacher, Ido Portal. You know him as Conor McGregor's movement coach.
Oh, okay.
So Conor McGregor, for at least a while there, he was employing Ido Portal, who's from Israel. And Ido, at that time, this was back in 2009. He did a video called Self-Dominance. It's about 1 minute and 30 seconds. And it's this amazing display of this guy moving through space, balancing and bending and twisting and moving gracefully and not showing exertion and not showing, which would make most people break in half.
Right.
It was like he had this liquidity, like a terminal liquidity to his movement. And I thought, that's what I want. That's what I want to learn. And I'm not getting it in weightlifting, and I'm not getting it anywhere else. I don't know what it is, but that's what I want to learn. So it wasn't long after I tracked him down. And at the time he was in Los Angeles. And at the time I was living in Spokane, Washington. I got in touch with him. I flew him up to Spokane for a few days. And I remember, it's so funny because for 2 days, all day long for 2 days. It cost all of $400 to train with him. And it was just me and my martial arts teacher for 2 days.
Man.
Wow.
Getting this private with Ido Portal. My friend, you couldn't spend $10,000 and get his attention now. He's
Sure.
exploded so big and beyond. But what I learned in those 2 days, that was the rebirth. That was the Phoenix moment in my life, where I went from, the microcosm of the irondom in the gym to, wow, like somebody had lifted this veil, like, that's strength. What that takes is, that's what I want to learn. And so I have to put a little disclaimer, because your audience, none of this is a bash at all, zero, to anyone who has worked their ass off lifting heavy weights. That's their thing, and I don't ever want that to come across. I'm merely reflecting the people that seek me out. They're just people that say, I just want a little bit more than what my current thing is giving me.
Yeah.
And so I like the balance of what this guy has.
Absolutely.
That's what I want to learn. And so that's what Ido did for me. And I had since created the Atlas Movement, which is a teacher training certification program. It's 2 to 3 years in length. And then I have the Atlas Method, which is more just a class teaching. It takes maybe 6 months to do, and you're basically certified, and you can teach the Atlas Method. And so I've got 2 systems that I certify people to share this kind of information. And you have to go through, and you got to pass all the prerequisites of knowing how to do, being able to disseminate everything, breaking everything down, have a level of mastery over these movements so that you can replicate. But
so you mentioned to me the first time we met, because I, wrongly, like a lot of people, asked you if you had been a gymnast, as a child, because, the majority of, adults you see being able to do the types of things that you do anyway, have usually a fairly extensive past doing, things like gymnastics or something of that sort. And you mentioned to me that, no, I started this when I was, mid 30s, 35. Yeah. And I sucked this out. And you said that you actually, contacted a couple of people via Facebook and built rapport and got to know them. And it, to me, it's just very, very fascinating how, you saw something and then you without any inhibitions, started going after that and chasing that relentlessly. Yeah. So that's pretty extraordinary in and of itself.
Right. Is that something, sorry, Eric, Steve, that you have had throughout your life, or is that something that's kind of developed over time? Is that mindset of seeing something, saying, I want that, and then relentlessly going after it?
That's an interesting question, because it's multi-layered in the answer. The stronger I became, not just from the weightlifting, but as I got strong in the martial arts, and then I got strong in yoga, and then I got strong in my balances, the stronger my discipline became, and the less fear that I had on taking on any challenge. See, a person's fearful of going into something they're not aware of. And as you begin to go into all these different physical mediums and you start to achieve and acquire, you're tearing those fears away. Absolutely. And it's being replaced by reinforcement. So your drive and your discipline becomes even more enhanced, for lack of a better term. Now, I'm not I'm not getting younger. So I'm well aware of my mortality here. I do work within my means. So I don't say, like, for example, some people say, I've had people say, hey, can you teach me how to do flips? I'm not a tumbling teacher. Like Casey is the person, my Casey, she could teach you how to do that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of parts of gymnastics. Like my primary set of that has come from, I've taken a lot of shortcuts. And by that, I mean, I've selected balance. I've selected flexibility. There's some things that I can do well on the rings, but not all things on the rings, for example. There's some things that I can do on the floor, but not all things on the floor. So I've had to select, because at the end of the day, I'm not starting out as an 8-year-old, where I have all the plasticity on my body. For a 48-year-old man, I got pretty damn awesome range of motion.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Checks out.
Yeah, you beat me by a few miles there, pal.
But I'm exquisitely aware of what I can and can't do. I have, several things that I have to manage certain parts of my body, because the activity of the things that I love to do, and going down to Vegas next month to work with Carmita Lorador, one of the most amazing choreographers and duo act. I have to be ready for that. Mentally, I have to be ready for that. Physically, I have to be ready for that. And but the beautiful thing is that this is a woman who's in her 50s, who also has the understanding of an aged athlete. So we take more time to warm up. We take more time in caring. So you do reach a point in your life where the warm up, Nikita, my former flyer, would say, the warm up is responsible for 50% of the success of your training. And he's 100% right. Because in what we do, if your joints and your tendons and everything is not ready, and you try to just say, F it, I'm going to push, I'm just going to go.
Right.
Have fun on the shelf for the next 3 months.
Right.
Yes.
You're going to hurt. You just can't. There are certain things you can power through and have no worry. In this craft, in this art form, I teach my students the number one important rule, which is learn how to listen to your body above all, because that biofeedback that says, I think I can do it, but my body's already it's already shaking. It's like, you're rolling craps at this point. You may be fine and you may not be. How do I know this? Because there's been more than a dozen times where I pushed beyond and I've been fine. And there's been at least a dozen times where I pushed beyond and I screw myself up. And now I'm on the shelf.
That's a good old experience as a great teacher.
Yeah,
right?
there you go.
So that brings up kind of an interesting question that I have. So from my point of view, as a strength and conditioning guy, as a coach to many a bodybuilder and or power lifter, so kind of to the extreme of the strength and the extreme of the aesthetics side of the house. So, what you do to me is just fascinating from a physiology standpoint, because you incorporate that extra element of balance along with that. So I guess kind of more of a selfish question, for my own benefit, I guess, or not benefit, but for out of my own curiosity, we'll say, is how do you structure specifically your resistance training with weights, the barbell, things of that nature, to your balance training and or flexibility training? So, you don't have to explain all of it, obviously, because we could probably talk for several days, if not weeks, about that. But what are some of your top things? How do you periodize? How do you structure, say, okay, today's a lifting day, today's a balance day, today's how do you pair all of that in a short rundown?
The most succinct sentence I could say is skills before aesthetics. Okay. So in summary, I came from the lifting background. So lifting was to this day, it's easy for me. I'm not saying that obviously I can challenge myself, but I'm not relearning brand new techniques.
Right.
I'm basically, I go into the gym. I know what I need to do to make my muscles respond. That's easy for me. It's never easy for me to bend in a certain way, or to prepare my body to do the handstands, the handstand conditioning, which is a series of handstand push-ups that I have to do just for preparation to get my solo act ready. I have to do all these handstand push-ups in the middle of the floor. So it's like, these are things that that since when I'm teaching somebody for the first time who likes to lift but wants to incorporate this stuff, I say you got to prioritize your skill first. Okay, the gym work will be ready for you, your body will be, but if you go and you exhaust your primary muscle movers by isolating your sets of muscles, and then you try to turn around, you're going to hurt yourself. So now the disclaimer to this is that let's pretend you are a gymnast and your whole life you've been in acrobatics and this kind of a thing.
Right.
The reverse is true.
Right.
So for that person, they could get away with doing that because their motor engrams are so taut and they're so well oiled in their planche, their handstands and their ring work that they can do that if they were drunk. Right. They're that good at what they do.
Sometimes I think I'd be better at that if I was drunk.
Oh, we have stories to share in private, my friend.
Very good. So you're saying that, for somebody wanting to get better at the balance work, at the flexibility work, you prioritize that, similar to, weak point training for a bodybuilder.
Absolutely correct.
Very good. So similar rules still apply. We're taking, physiological principles and applying them to the skill set needing to be worked, essentially.
This is correct as well.
Excellent. So how many days a week do you currently lift weights in the classical sense?
There are approximately 3 hard days.
Okay.
And then there's 3 lighter days.
Okay.
Now this is just with weight training. So it's 6 days a week, but if I'm being honest, my strength training sessions are never more than an hour long. They just don't take that long.
Okay. Sure. So are you doing, your kind of standard compound movements? Are you doing squats, bench press, deadlifts, overhead press, or are you doing more isolated bodybuilding style movements? How do you train and how do you prefer to train? And are those the same?
Okay. Because in the sense of my body weight stuff, there's a lot of hip mobilization work that I do. You're down in that primal squat position a lot, and you're mobilizing the tissues in the feet and the ankles and the knee joints and the hip joints and these kinds of things. And so because of that, and I practice that so frequently with my students and with my clients, I have found that my need to do a lot of squatting isn't really there. When I do squat weight, I will go all the way down. I will usually go, ass to ground, and I don't always have a heavy amount of weight, but I like to hold the weight at the bottom, and I will do what's called gliding. So I'll do the very subtle lateral movements going side to side. And it's just the subtle touching of tissue that we don't normally get, where all you do is you're going into your power zone. You might bring your hips to, you might bring your femur back to, say horizontal, going back up, which is considered legitimate. When I'm going all the way down and I realize the capsular elements of that knee, they're all exposed. So you want to be careful, But it's amazing how resilient these tissues are, and they do adapt and they do acclimate.
That's the thing, is adaptation.
I can't go that deep because, my back it's like, well, you've never tried to train it unloaded. Right. And you have to really learn the mobilization pieces to segue that. So my students, and I'm working with a guy with JP, and we started back in March, and he lives over in Portland. He's a 50-year-old guy who likes to ski and stuff. And where his squat was then and where it is now, it's night and day. But that's not even the most impressive part. It's the range by which he goes down with this weight on his back, or the range that when I have him on the leg press and he goes all the way down, or the range that he does when he's doing his lunges. It's like, it's the opening of a realization that you are only as strong as your weakest link.
Right.
And the more we can shore these weak links up, the stronger your strengths already become. So look, man, when I was 20, it was important for me to have my 500-pound squat. That was important to me. And I was very proud of that. I thought that was kind of my world. That was sort of my microcosm of my world and being able to do a heavy bench press. But those maximum effort, I don't really, this is just an opinion. My opinion, generally speaking, if you're not a competitive power lifter, there's very little value or merit for somebody doing a 1 rep maximum strength lift. For practical intent and purposes, 5 repetitions with a heavier weight that you can repeatedly do has 10 times more practicality attached to it. Now, I get it. In a power
less risk.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have to, I'm looking at the people that I'm working with. They're interested in doing even the balance stuff for the rest of their life.
Right.
Because there is a yogic sort of philosophy of being mindful of your movement, being able to be in control of your quality of movement. Number one, it's like you don't have to be a Cirque du Soleil artist to seek perfection within the quality of your movement. Now that evolves. My students, they started out looking like robots when they started. And just in 1 hour, they've completely changed the expression of their movement because they've let go of, I'm thinking about everything. It's like, stop thinking, let your body move so that it can actually explore how it's designed. So there's so much to disseminate, which is, we talked about this in previous conversations, Eric, about the workshops.
Right.
And that's really those are the nuts and bolts where we really get into the ability of everything from program design, periodization of how everything kind of pulls together, and the basic examples of each subsequent template that people can use. And if you are a real novice beginner, you might start here. But if you're an advanced athlete, even if you're not skilled in my stuff, you might start here. And there are those few exceptional people who have some measure, they're high level, but there's always something to teach. It's like this happens in unfailingly all the time. A person, they will send like a handstand video and they'll show me somebody doing a handstand or something like that. And it's like, they're walking on their hands, their back is completely arched. And my response is, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, what are you trying to tell me about your, it's like, okay. So now I get it. So this is a first for you. And you want to get better at this. And so that's when because there's a number of people that I work with online. But there's nothing quite like having an experienced person looking over you who, when you watch them and you listen to them, you watch how they breathe, you watch where their hands are, you watch how relaxed they are in their demeanor. If they can relax in their speech while they're in the actual movement, it commands a level of attention that you cannot tell somebody, please listen to me. It's like, no, if you want somebody's attention, do something impressive that commands their attention.
Right.
Now you have it. And so I always wanted to be the guy. It's like one thing, the internet is flooded with people who have either an extreme level of ability, but no academic backing. And the opposite spectrum were extreme academic, but they can't do a goddamn thing with their body.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's
It's true.
Yeah. We talk about that often.
And they're not doing anything with it. Ido Portal would say, he said, it's almost, I'm going to do my best Ido Portal impression. Here we go. It is as if the more knowledge a person has, the less they do.
Yeah.
And there is a funny correlation about this.
Yeah.
And again, I believe in the symmetry of having the balance between a practical and a technical understanding of the.
It's like the age-old saying of those who cannot do teach, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's kind of we're like you in that that's like the opposite of what we believe in. You know what I mean? Every single one of my employees here, trainers specifically, coaches, we pride ourselves, and every single one of them is pretty much actively competing in their craft, whatever that may be. And, for us, obviously that's more so the bodybuilding, the powerlifting, the strongman side of the house. But, for somebody like you, it's just, I definitely respect anybody in any realm, especially something as physical as what you do and as what we do, that, you're not only the coach and the teacher, but you are also the student as well, continually, which is, so important to never stop learning. Obviously that's something you hear a lot, but
Right.
it's certainly something that to me, brings a whole different level of respect as somebody who's constantly trying to get better themselves and not just sit back on previous accomplishments, and tell others what to do type of a situation.
Right. Steve, with you, when were you kind of at the point where you felt confident that I could train somebody in this or teach somebody, and then even to the extent where I want to teach potential teachers of this craft? What point did you kind of make that shift?
It was after a few years. It took me a few years to really get confident enough to where I could start teaching. I mean, Chris Charnos, my martial arts teacher, said, really, if I'm being honest, the only thing that you need in order to teach is to have more knowledge of the next guy.
Sure.
Right. It doesn't necessarily make you an expert teacher in that. It just means that you have more knowledge to kind of share.
Yeah.
And being real honest, in the beginning, it was more happenstance and conversation. It's like, well, this is what I've learned, and this is kind of what I'm doing right now. And so then people are kind of like, well, could you show me that? And it's like, okay, I'm not great at it. I'm still working, the details out.
Did that help you learn when you began sharing that with others?
Yeah, it made me a better teacher, but it also reinforced the fact that, when I'm certifying a person to become a teacher in the method or movement, the biggest thing is don't teach what you don't know. Don't put yourself because there's plenty of stuff that I don't know. And there's plenty of things, like in my younger years, it's almost the opposite. Like I wouldn't know stuff, but I wanted the business so bad. It's like, I'll fudge myself through this and I'll kind of, I'll rationalize it in my head. And I would say that only in the last few years, the highest or the most effective way that I've been able to teach has been to really tune in to listen to what my students were saying. Mm-hmm. And before going on, for example, there's a consultation with a lady I've never met. I got to meet her tonight. And my job for that 45 minutes is to simply listen. I want to gain and extract everything that I can before I even open my mouth. I mean, I'm not going to be rude and not say hello,
Right.
But no, the point is that I had a little bit of knowledge. I started to share it humbly. Hunter, I did not have a whole lot behind me at the time. But as I got better, I gained more confidence, and I was able to, really structure it, because people that are performing artists, 99 times out of 100, they learned it in their youth. Mm. And so they didn't learn it as an adult. I was a coach becoming a performing artist. Mm-hmm. So one of the advantages the disadvantage, obviously, I did not have the plasticity and bendability and all the things that a child would have over me. Okay, I did not have those physiological advantages, but what I did have is scalability. I had understanding of the knowledge of the body and the wisdom to be able to go, oh my God, this is what's going to happen if you do too many sets. I mean, when I was following my movement teacher's protocol, I overtrained. Mm-hmm. Well, why did I overtrain? Well, because I'm 10 years older than he is. And I was following somebody who was 10 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. So I realized that he was playing to his audience, which was his age or younger. And I was playing to my audience, which was my age or older in a lot of cases. Mm-hmm. So, most of the people that come to my class that learns a lot of my stuff, they're anywhere from 30 years old all the way to 65.
Right.
Right. this is my range. No one should have to say, I'm too old. I'd like to learn that stuff, but I'm just afraid that, fear will kill you. It will kill the dream that you have. I always tell people, I don't know who's telling you no, but get away from those people.
That's true.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of that, one of our questions that we ask everyone that comes on this podcast is, if somebody is struggling or stuck, what words of wisdom would you give them?
Well, we have to be specific to that question. For example, are we talking about somebody who's trying to learn an element, for example? Maybe they're trying to learn how to do, I had one client who was trying to learn how to do a press handstand, just as an example. He wanted to learn this damn thing so damn bad. And he was very athletic, very flexible, had a lot of strength. But in the balance world, it comes down to, in some ways, not all, but in some ways, the morphology. So the anatomical limb length of your femur and your torso length and the shape of your arms and how they are articulated. When you are bringing your elbow under your body, when you're doing handstand push-ups and you're doing these things, this stuff matters. It's all biomechanics.
Right. So
all of these things have a mechanical consequence attached to it. Okay, so this gentleman, because of how short his arms were in relation to the limb length of his legs, he practiced this thing until he was blue in the face and he could never get it. He had to plunge so far forward to get his weight to come up over the top. And he couldn't understand, what was going on. It's like, look, I'm not going to tell you that you can't do this, but for you to make it work, it's going to look ugly. And the reason is it's not because of your effort. It's not because you're not strong. It's because how you're designed.
Mm-hmm.
So he started to kind of, he kind of scratched his head. I said, let me offer you this. Instead of learning how to do the press handstand, I said, because why do you want to learn this? He said, well, I want to learn how to go from basically, from the floor position. I want to be able to push myself up into a handstand. I said, well, why don't you learn the handstand push-up? And he's like, I would love to learn the handstand push-up. I said, I want you to take all that energy that you were trying to do. Now, one is a press, which your arms are locked out. They're completely straight. And you lean forward over the top and you unfurl your hips and your knees and your legs and you come up into the line. With the handstand push-up, you bring your nose to the floor, you lift your weight, and then you push straight up. So the presentation is different, but the strength effect, you have to have it there. Within a few months, he got it. And it was like this light bulb went off. It's like, listen, every single human being on earth is unique and special in the way that they were designed. So I always tell people, tell me why this is so important for you. Why is it? Because that will determine the level of drive and their level of commitment. Okay, that's an important question to ask. The other thing is that understanding what your body is gifted toward. Look, if you like to run all the damn time, you're probably going to hate strength training. And I would guess, because if you like to run, you're good at it, you're fast, and you can go forever and ever and ever. You never get tired. I run more than 100 feet, I'm panting. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
So we can relate.
Right.
Yeah. So you gotta, we have to, so if I find somebody that's struggling in my little tribe of people that I work with, I will offer them, okay, your crocodile balance, it doesn't come inherent, but your side elbow lever and your QDR balance, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. So don't beat yourself up because you're putting all this energy out there. I want you to have this epiphanal light bulb moment. It's like, you are beautiful in certain balances, and you're going to struggle in other balances because they have nothing that your body was actually going to help you with. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't train them. It doesn't mean that, but I want you to at least have the perspective and the understanding. When I do a performance, for example, I'm showing my best stuff. I'm showing my strength, not going out there and, doing the hardest balances on my weak side, so I can only embarrass myself. I've done that enough times too. So you have to, I try to encourage people, hey, where are your strengths? Where are your gifts? Where are your talents? Let's really walk that, because if you're following your bliss, you're already on the right path. But sometimes people, they see something that another person does and they go, God, I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
And they stop. But that's that person's path. It's not theirs.
Right.
So,
no, I think that's incredibly insightful. And I think, just as you were talking, I think I was thinking about, how people could apply that way of thinking to literally every aspect in life, right?
Yeah.
Not just balancing, not just weight training. I mean, you can absolutely apply that to every aspect in life. Look at where you're strong, look at those areas that, you definitely want to improve on. But, just like I tell people this with bodybuilding specifically all the time, you'll get these guys that just come out on stage and you're just, whoa, there's a factor about them, and people that have an untrained eye, they can't quite put their finger on them. They just, this person just looks unbeatable, but what you realize very quickly is that these people still have weak points. They're just very good at hiding them because their strong points are so dominant. And so, even when it comes down to people training for bodybuilding, you have to train to your strengths. And it's not that you're trying to not fix weaknesses or imbalances or anything like that. But if you don't have something that's extraordinary, then that's what's going to really expose, the weak points. And I think the same could be said for, people just in life too. You hear a lot about, what people are gifted at, what people are talented for. Not a whole lot about what they suck at. Right.
Right.
They don't hear a whole lot about, if somebody mentions my name, they might mention, coaching or bodybuilding or whatever, some things, maybe cool things that I've done, but, there's not a lot of times you hear, oh, well, God, he's a terrible runner. It's like, well, that, that much is obvious, right? So I think, what you said is, definitely incredibly insightful for people. So I want to go into a little bit more about, these, immersive courses, so to speak. We've talked privately, obviously, about how, something like this needs to occur at the Mecca, because number one, I see tremendous value in what you have to teach, and it's such a different yet complementary path for people to take than what we coach and preach and teach here already. It is so different, yet it does have so many common ties and so many common threads. So tell me a little bit about that process. What does that look like for people to come to an immersive course? If we were to say, hey, we have the Atlas method at the Mecca Gym on a weekend, what does that look like?
There's so much material. The Atlas method, I think, would be a great place to start, because I could take people through a class without them knowing what the class is going to be empirically about. They just have to know it's going to be a group setting. We're all going to go through it nice and easy. There's going to be a lot of stretching and flexibility work. There's going to be some strength work, and there's going to be introduction to all these different balances. So it's a great place for people to go, gosh, I would love to learn how to balance. Do I have to be a gymnast? And it's like, no, you don't. It's like, that's the whole point. You don't have to be, a previous gymnast to do this stuff. But if you want to have an adjunct, particularly to your line of work, look, there's a number of people in the gyms that flock to this style of work that I teach. But I would say that you really have to be in a place where you truly want to learn it. So if it's kind of I'm kind of interested in that, it's like, don't come. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to save you the time and energy. It's like, I don't want you to come and waste your time, because when you are unable to go down into a split, if you are an alpha testosterone driven man and you don't have patience for a learning curve to let your body adapt, you're going to hate this stuff, because you have to have enough far-sighted vision to go, okay, I'm going to be doing this for 6 to 12 months. I'm going to make this commitment. I've never come close to a splits before, but if this guy can do it, maybe I can too. Now, there's a lot of limitations. Now, I'm going to shortcut this. When it comes empirically, there's a lot of things that enable a person to go into and prevent people from going into a full split. Okay. But we are going to exercise every training opportunity within our abilities without having some subluxation or a ligament tear happen and occur. We're going to do everything effective. But it has to be understood that we train our flexibility just like when we go to the gym and we train our chest. We train. It's not some passive nuisance that we just, oh, God, yeah, I didn't really stretch today, so I guess I'll go stretch my hamstrings a little bit and throw my foot back and pull my ankle into, this quad hip flexor stretch, and I'm good to go. It's like, this is why you're not flexible.
Right.
Because your approach is completely wrong. Why would you train your biceps that way? No, you're a competitive body. Well, do you want to learn how to get flexible? Do you want to learn how to balance? You have to, your focus of training has to just transfer the same level of attention to a different, and if your mindset is there, you will move mountains, because you'll then have the physical abilities that match what you look like. Because with all intent and purposes, there are some strong bodybuilders out there, for sure there are. But comparatively, on the relative strength scale, they're the weakest athletes in the world. Bodybuilders, by relative strength of how much muscle they carry compared to a gymnast. Now, I'm not talking about, we're talking strength, that we're not talking about golfers and bowlers. We're not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm not dissing on those people either. It's just that, look, we have to understand, what I want to share with you is it's going to require, 100% focus. But if people are willing to go into that realm, like the students that I have, they are addicted to this stuff. They'll do it for life, because it's unlocked something in their brain. It's like they have skills and stuff. When they go to parties, they can pull some stuff off it's like
party
tricks, right?
How were you able to do what happened to my friend that, it's like, and that's when they come back and they share these stories with what they were doing in front of their friends. Is like, it just reminds you, it's like, but you paid your dues. You put the time in. You were willing to learn. And so you have to be in that space. And Eric, you know this very well. If you're not in the headspace to learn, it doesn't matter how valuable the knowledge is. It's just not going to be received.
Right.
But if it is cultivated in a place where, look, if you want to come and you truly want to learn how to increase your flexibility in ways that you probably were not exposed to before, if you want to learn how to actually balance and make that a part of then you would want to come to this workshop. And so that's, and I don't go into a workshop and just say, just do this. I'll do the physical demonstration. I want everyone to see what the ideal coach is actually doing. And then I do the disclaimer and say, listen, I've been doing this a long time. Didn't learn it as a kid, but I still been practicing. So when you're starting out, it's not going to seem like much. And I give the easiest thing I know that they can do. So that they can go, okay, I can at least do that. And then I show them the next easiest thing. And then about the third and the fourth easiest thing, that's when, you're more seasoned athletes who have the strength that can actually maybe. So, but I scale everything because I know what it's like to learn this stuff as an adult. And it's very, very humbling. So you really just want to have to be in the right headspace to learn this stuff, but it's super rewarding, man.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I want to transition just a smidge, because, you know, something else that people will notice watching you perform is not only do you have, you know, an incredible skill set and incredible balance, but dude, you're built like a tank, man. You got muscles growing out of your ears. So what what does your nutrition look like? You're in great shape. You stay, you know, considerably leaner than a lot of people, say, you know, off-season bodybuilders and things like that. You keep yourself closer to, you know, a bodybuilder that's getting close-ish to the stage. You're considerably lean. So what does your nutrition look like, and what are some of the key nutritional philosophies that you follow? What helps you?
Okay. Just because you pointed that out to me specifically, and not what is my nutritional view in life to everybody, I can be very precise with that. So as an example, when I woke up this morning for breakfast, I took my elk burger that was already ground.
Very nice. Yes.
There we go.
I fried my elk burger up with some minced garlic, and I took a half, it's quart, so I guess a pint of egg whites, and I dumped that over the top, and I literally fried up my egg whites with my elk meat.
That sounds like my ideal breakfast.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to do that tomorrow, now that you just
going
said
to
that.
be happening.
So then I took my carb balance tortilla. I put my elk egg mixture on top. I took my spinach leaves, my organic spinach leaves. I put that over the top, and I use a Boat House, which is a yogurt base. It's a lighter dressing, and I put about 1.5 tablespoons on top. That was my breakfast. And so if you do the macronutrient on that, it's really high in protein. Yep. There's a little bit of fat. There's a little bit of carbohydrate in there. And that's not an unusual kind of staple for my breakfast. It's not always elk meat. Sometimes it's beef. Sometimes it's chicken. Sometimes it's spinach, you know, for the holidays. A very, you know, for me, and I know everyone's kind of different, but for me, I have been able to maintain being lean year round, not peeled, like you said, but lean, because I have to be for these shows. I have to be within, you know, if somebody says, hey, can you do this show, you know, and it's in a month, I'll be ready. You know, I'll be ready. I'll feel, you know, I'm almost naked out there. So you don't want to go and embarrass yourself by stepping on stage and not being, you know, ready when you're going to be bending and balancing and doing all this stuff. So yeah, you have to eat. For me, I generally eat higher protein, a moderate amount of fat, a lower amount of carbohydrate. When I feel my carbs are getting low and depleted, and I'll know this, my body, I've just learned to listen to my body well enough. I'll bring my carbohydrates up about, 1 to 3 days. My carbohydrates come a lot higher. So I do cyclic loading of my carbohydrates to help me. And, you know, there's times like when we did Idaho Cup afterwards, the Craigs, we went out to Bricks.
Oh, yeah.
You damn right. I had that bacon cheeseburger.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that I don't ever have those things. I do, but right. I like personally, I like having the carrot out there for me to, you know, because I really don't have the cravings. I don't have the want or the will. And I think that that's a sign that you're healthy, your eating is correct. And it is healthy when you're not having all these cravings all the time. Like a lot of people's like, I'm just dying. It's like, yeah, because you're so chemically altered in your brain has just learned all this processed food. And so
certainly. Over time, the unhealthy habits kind of self-perpetuate, right? Yeah. So do you track total calories for you? Do you track micronutrients at all?
I used to, until I basically could look at portion control and know what was in this. You know, that the elk meat is as you know, it is so lean. You know,
best meat on the earth, man.
I could live off that every day, man. Seriously.
Oh,
There's not we'd hunt all the elk out of his existence. So we got but those are things that I want to be able to continue to work on in terms with my clients who have eaten, for decades. They've eaten maybe not really an ideal way.
Right.
So you're breaking addictions and chemistry. You're breaking in brain chemistry because of the processed foods. This is not easy to overcome. It's not just about willpower at this stage. There's psychological, emotional things that maybe for a while you might be able to get them going, but it's really, really hard. This is why so many people, they lose a lot of weight and then they end up putting it all back on.
Exactly. Yeah, it is, it's a struggle. And, I talk about this every day with clients, as I'm sure you do as well, quite frequently. And I was actually talking to some clients this morning about how it literally is enough to drive me nuts, because our gym, as it sits right now, there's a McDonald's out on the corner, and our new gym location, we share a parking lot. It's kind of distant, but we share a parking lot with a McDonald's, and every time, doesn't matter what time of day, it could be morning, could be middle of the afternoon, nighttime, doesn't matter. There is a damn line, 10 to 15 cars long outside of that McDonald's, and they may as well have a sign out there that just says poison here. It's absolutely insane to me, the issues that we have in this country with people being unhealthy. Even after COVID, if there was ever a wake-up call for people to get healthy, hey, guess what? If you get healthy, this disease basically doesn't affect you. If there was ever a wake-up call, that's it. And yet people are still lining up to things like McDonald's, and making poor food choices. And I mean, it's a very, it's a much more deeply rooted and complex issue than I'm making it out to be right now, of course. But if more people had a perspective like yours, we'd have a whole lot less less issues in this country with our eating. That's for sure. So what percentage of your clientele would you say is more so general fitness compared to doing the more advanced kind of balance work and things like that?
Yeah, boy, it's a hybrid, man. That's hard. It's put a percentage on. I have, half the people that I work with are general fitness. Okay. And then the other half are smattering of different levels of athletes that I work with, these balances and some of the performing arts and stuff. So it just kind of depends on the person, on the week, on the day that I'm, working with. I have people that are, working really hard and being challenged with weight and weight loss. Yeah. And, so there's certain things there's certain concessions people are willing to do. And, a person might they might apply 40% of the knowledge I give them. They might apply 75% of the knowledge I give them. There's very few people that will apply 100%. It's a lot to do when you're talking about the reformation of a lifestyle. Because effectively, Eric, I mean, this, you didn't look this way when you woke up. You've been practicing a lifestyle. Right. what we're trying to do is say, hey, look, if you hope to have any quality of life in your 60s and in your 70s as you're moving forward, you have to start now, because the habits that you are creating, and show me a person's pattern of movements in their everyday, and I can show you the pathology of their life.
Right.
In other words, if they sit behind a desk and they are eating and drinking and they're not moving, and it's just like we have to create fail safes for these people. So there's a wellness component that I teach as a number one rule to the first element of fitness. Has nothing to do with fitness for these people. There's a wellness component that needs to come first as the foundation to build.
Yeah.
You lay your foundation of your house first. This is the wellness part. This is actually addressing things like your sleep, your hydration, your nutrition.
Right.
You cannot exercise your way out, of a bad diet all the time. So we have to build up, the fitness part. That's easy. Telling you to X, Y, and Z in the gym, with all respect, that's the easy part. But getting people to feel like maybe they need a little bit more support. Maybe they need to be understood. Maybe they're not being heard. If you have a spouse that is at home and one person is fit and the other person is not, that's a discord. That's a major issue. And I'm speaking from experience. But when you have two people who eat healthy, live healthy, and are healthy, it's like, wow, it's a beautiful day. You're not fighting burn all the time. And it doesn't make the person a person, but they're you're a product of your environment, whether you want to hear it or not. And if you're not on the same page when it comes to that. So like people like yourself who are in the front lines of supporting and helping and building these people up. I mean, ultimately, I want that for everybody coming into my fold. I want everyone to feel like they're going to be supported. The other side of that, however, is I don't blow smoke up people's ass just to make them feel better.
Right.
As you should not.
Right. More detrimental than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there is a great deal of that going on because trainers, they want to get the sell and they want to make people feel good, and they'll be, for all intent and purposes, I wouldn't say dishonest, but they're not doing the service just.
Right.
It's like you have to be able to look at your client in the eye and say, listen, here's the deal. I give a shit about you, but we're not going to be making any traction moving forward unless we address this. Now, you can continue to pay me and I can continue to take your money, but I can't in good faith go to sleep at night knowing that you're not doing what is actually required for there to be an illicit change.
Right.
This, in my own career, this was something that I've gotten very good at doing. Because when I'm solid enough now in my practice where I can have the freedom to choose who I want to bring in. If somebody comes in, for example, and say, I'd like to be able to train with you. It's like, well, let's go have coffee. Let's sit down and talk. I like to get a vibe of where this person's coming from.
Right.
Well, I want to learn this. I want to learn that. I don't want to learn this. I'm not interested in this kind of stuff over there. And it's like, well, the gym is right over there. Well, I was thinking, maybe you could help me out. You're not ready for what I have to teach.
Yeah.
I need to be 100% in.
Yeah.
And I'm not, for this to, if you want what you're telling me what you want, it's like this. Here's what you want, but this is what you're willing to do.
Right.
Do you want me to lie to you and say, oh, you're ready? Here, give me money. Or would you respect me a little bit more if I said, listen, when you're here with your commitment and everything else, let me know and when you do that to me, when you give me that, I'll give you everything. I'll give you my life. I will fall on the sword to defend you. Right. That's what you get from me. Right. But I need you to be ready.
Yeah.
And so this is a beautiful part, because when there's that authenticity that we lack, and when you can find somebody who's, it's like, people say this all the time, like, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do in life. So I've been blessed in the way that I found exactly what I'm supposed to be doing in this thing we call life.
Right.
So yeah, I get a little bit worked up and passionate about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
That's great.
I mean, the thing is, people can't hire a teacher or a coach or a trainer to, give them something that they don't already have, right? If that makes sense, kind of what you're saying, if their commitment level is there and they have it in them to give something 100%, those are the people that excel and do great. But, that's like somebody coming to me and saying they want to be, on stage, but they're not willing to monitor what they eat. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, sure. I'll go crush it in the gym, but I'm not tracking my food. There's no way. I'm not tracking my food. It's like, well, if you were willing to do that, you would be a heck of a lot further along than you already are. That's for sure. Right. So it's, we as coaches and teachers, it's not like you can be there to give somebody that motivation 24 hours a day, right? It's, it's kind of about, and that's part of the premise of this podcast, obviously, is, giving people, that insight and that look into somebody with the type of drive that you have to pursue, not only a passion, but a new skill set or, something that they want to do, and, lifting can be incredibly impactful and powerful in that way because it's a continually hard thing that you're never going to be the master at, right? There's particular crafts that it's like, yes, you can strive for perfection and strive for perfection, but you're never going to master it. Nobody ever masters it. You're never going to lift all the weight that there is to lift. You're never going to be, you're chasing a perfection that's always fleeting, right? But that's part of the allure of what you do and what we do is, chasing that perfection and getting as close as possible, right? And you and I both are lucky to get to share that with people in different respects, right? Very, very cool. So let me look at my my list of questions here for you.
I just wanted to circle back real quick on one point. You asked me about my diet and stuff like that, and you asked me about tracking stuff and this kind of thing. When I competed in the first and only bodybuilding show I ever did, which was the Ironman Naturally, also held by the Craigs back in 1995.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Nice.
Yeah, that's back when there was just bodybuilding.
Yeah,
and that was about it.
Yeah, that was about it.
Yeah, there wasn't much there. But anyway, so if I were actually getting ready to do a show and I come and peeled, those things that you're talking about tracking every little detail once, I 100% would practice that. Yeah. It's a must. If you're going to be competitive, you're going to go to that level. I've kind of found the happy balance because if I had to do that year round, you cannot be peeled to the bone year round and be strong simultaneously. I have to be completely at full strength. So my leanness is predicated upon how lean can I get before I start to lose my strength. And that's my cutoff.
Yep.
Because in the acrobatics world, if I can get leaner and I can actually draw the water out and I can look good and be vascular.
Right.
I'll carb load, I'll have everything right. But if I can't perform the act, then I might as well be eating on stage and not being a performing artist. So
right. Yeah. Right. No, exactly. Yeah. So one of the more interesting questions, in my opinion, that we ask people is, if you could have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Wow.
That's a loaded one.
Wow. Boy, that is a loaded one.
And it can be anyone.
You know, there's a man that in the Navy, when I was in the United States Navy, I served in the chaplain department, and he was the Catholic priest. You know how people talk about being kind and stuff like that, and they will say something about a person. That's one of the kindest people I've ever known.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear that, and you're like, oh, that's nice, you know.
Yeah.
This man, who I kind of lost contact with after 1994, after I got out of the military, but he definitely would have been that person, because what he represented in the world, contrary to anything about formalized religion or anything like that, he lived an example of I found just, I always wanted to be around that guy because of how he lived his life and how compassionate he was to people. He was the closest thing to a living Christ, without calling him that, you know,
right.
that I found for me personally, without getting on a religious, I'm not trying to freak people. I'm just saying the man was that good as a human being that I wanted to be around him. And so since leaving the military, I wasn't able. So he would definitely be a person, because he's the one person, and this is the lesson, and this is why I'm sharing this. So I thought that this was pretty dang insightful of him. One day we're driving to a town called Julian, and it's outside of San Diego, California, because I was based in the Navy. We're right there in San Diego, North Island, California.
Oh, okay.
So we're driving, come to the last light before you start driving out into the countryside. And I said, Father, what does God want from us? And he just kind of, because he knew I'm this 20-year-old, very impressionable kid, you know, getting ready to leave the Navy in about 5-6 months.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't start reciting biblical quotes, and he didn't go into anything. He said, the first thing he said, I think God wants you to use your gifts. I think he wants you to listen to people. And I think he wants you to be compassionate to others. And I'm like, that's it? And he looked at me, and he didn't call me Steve. He called me Steven. He said, that's everything.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, it was. So
that's
to this day,
powerful.
You got to use the gifts that you've been given, you know.
Yeah.
And I think we spent more time listening to people. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's one.
That's one.
That's a good
That's
one.
one guy.
Great one.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, you know, I'm really not. I'm not really like a celebrity guy.
No.
Especially the older I get. I'm super fortunate to have both parents still alive. So, you know, probably some like probably like a, you know, Jesus Christ, you know.
Yeah.
That would be, you know, that's kind of like the outside realm. I would like to definitely get some counseling from him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we could all use it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I honestly, Eric, I truly want for very little in this life. I love being surrounded by good-hearted people.
Yeah.
That's so 2 of the 3.
There you go.
I like it.
That'll do. Are you a reader? Do you
Not I probably should be.
do you have any books that you've read that you would suggest to others, or any books that you've ever read that have been impactful to you?
Oh God. Well, My last name, I was not born Steve Atlas. My name was changed to Steve Atlas. My name was born Stephen Edward Neer. And I can say that with pride now. I mean, but at the time I was very estranged from my father.
Oh.
When I changed my name, it was, so there's a point I'm going with this, by the way. So I read the book Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah.
By Ayn Rand at a time of my life when that was extremely empowering for me.
Yeah.
And because I wasn't close with my father, I thought, Steve Atlas, I'm in the fitness industry. I love that.
Yeah.
It was the best thing that I ever did. Now, years later, I had repaired that relationship with my father, and he was very proud of me. He was, at the beginning, he was upset that I had changed my last name, but he saw what I built with the name that I have become.
Yeah.
And he did not want me to, change it back, because now everything is kind of professionally, it's all tied to that.
Right.
The fact that I have my father and we have a good relationship, that's all he really, he and I really care about is that, not, what's your title. And I won't get into the semantics of how all that kind of stuff went, south. But the book Atlas Shrugged, I found for me personally was very, very freeing, which is interesting because, that kind of runs a little contrary to the biblical sightings of what I was just talking about earlier in your question there. So, but that was a very impactful book for me that I think is a good read for anyone, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's a classic. I think that's a book that, everybody should read, especially when we were, a lot of the things that we've been dealing with all over the world the past, almost 2 years. It's become, unfortunately more relevant than it should. Right. I mean, but a great book. Top couple movies. Are you a movie watcher?
Yes.
Oh,
very good. Good company here.
Excellent. All right. Give us some of your favorites. We're always looking for refreshers or new favorites.
Right.
Gosh, man, there's so many movies. I'm a big sci-fi. I'm a big Ridley Scott fan.
Oh, okay.
Nice, very nice.
So many from Ridley Scott. I was a big science fiction fan. When the movie Alien first came out, I watched that so many. It's older. I realized that came out in '79, and
that's a classic, man.
Yeah, I loved Gladiator. I loved Braveheart.
Oh yeah,
fantastic.
Those movies were very impressionable to me. Something with a fantastic moral piece of that, where, in our culture, if we're wronged, we don't take a sword and go out and avenge the people that wronged us.
Yeah,
that's kind of frowned upon. And so the movies are funny, and vicariously we can kind of live our little justice through that. So I think movies kind of like that. And with the advent of HBO and Netflix and Amazon Prime and all these different stations to watch these movies, is like, the big one that I'm going to watch this month, that I watch every year in the holiday season, is the original Dickens classic of A Christmas Carol. I have to watch that.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I respect that.
That's a classic. I've got it's funny you bring up this time of year, because I religiously watch Christmas Vacation once a year.
We just watched that.
Oh
nice.
Yes,
very nice.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh man, it's just it gets me. I named my horse Eddie.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because he's just a massive doof. He's actually not as much of a doof as when we first got him now. So he might turn into Edward, but but it's Eddie, and our little colt's name is Griswold.
Oh, phenomenal.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a classic movie, but yeah. Were you a Schwarzenegger fan? Schwarzenegger movies?
Well, how I got involved in the actual beginning of all fitness and strength started when I was a kid. My dad was having company over when I lived in our first house. And he said, I want you to go, you can go into my bedroom and you can watch TV. This was literally like 1984.
Okay.
So at the time I'm like 11 years old, and I go and I turn on the TV, and it's Conan the Barbarian, where he's got the black and white face paint. He's got the sword.
Mm,
He's walking down and he's going to kill Thor Grim and all that. He's going to go to battle with these guys. And I ran back into the kitchen where my dad was. The company hadn't arrived. And I said, Dad, come on, you got to see this guy. So I bring him inside. He goes, oh, yeah, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger. I go, look at this. Look at the muscles and everything. I said, how do you get like that? And he said, I'll teach you. So Dad had these old cement, plastic covered Weider cement weights.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
That were in the basement, and he pulled those out. And my father was my first teacher that way. And so I became an Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, at least until relatively recent history.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
sure.
you
I
know.
think we're all in the same boat there.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of his, at least, until about 2000. And then,
Till he got into politics.
Bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a real bummer. But I mean, yeah, no, I kind of share that similar story. A buddy of mine, when we were probably about 14, 15, his, we were kind of into going to the gym, and his dad bought us the DVD of Pumping Iron.
oh yeah.
And was like, here, you guys are into lifting weights, watch this. And he didn't know that was gonna cause a cascade of events that, I mean, obviously you see where I've wound up, but
Don't blame him for this.
yes, we can all blame Arnold. So are you a music guy when you work out or when you train your balance skills?
And it's completely different music when I'm training balance and when I'm lifting.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. What's your lifting playlist look like, and what does your balance playlist look like?
The cool thing about having your own studio is you get to pick exactly the music you want, and no one can tell you any of the difference. So
heck yeah.
Right.
So I will have a combination of Metallica and Slayer and System of a Down and Scorpions and
Oh yes.
kind of this hodgepodge of hard stuff that makes me a little angry.
Yeah, there you go.
Got to get there sometimes.
I push it for me. Look, for me, it helps motivate me. It helps me push through. When I'm tired, I can continue to go. With the balance stuff, it's a very different kind of soundtrack. It's very serene. I can focus on my breath. I'm actually listening for my breathing to see if I'm in 100% control of it. And we'll talk about that at one of these workshops that we set up, because a lot of times when you're trying to go into something you're not used to doing, people hold their breath and not even aware that they're holding their breath.
Right.
Turn them out.
Yeah.
You gotta learn. Right. Gotta learn how to relax.
So are we talking like Enya? Are we talking like classical music while you're training for balance?
Some Enya, but if you go to any of the music stores and look up Brand X music.
Oh, okay.
And the clips are only about 2.5 minutes of these songs, but they're all instrumental.
Oh,
and
very cool.
They're gorgeous. They're beautiful. But and yeah, they're great.
What's that called? Brand X?
Yep. Brand X music.
All right. We're gonna note that.
Noted.
There we go. Brand X music. That's what's happening. That's gonna be my lifting music for today.
Oh boy.
Cool.
Oh yeah, that's right. My wife used to make fun of me because I would listen to Enya on heavy squat day.
Wow.
Oh
Getting
yeah,
yourself centered.
yeah, that's right. You gotta center it. You know, when you get so, so stimulated, so excited, you gotta have something to bring you back to earth, right?
Okay, sure.
Before you hit those 600-pound squats,
Right.
So what is your favorite style of training for you? We talked a little bit about the training that you do. What is your, preferred style of training? Do you prefer balance over lifting? Do you prefer lifting over balance? What is your ideal training? Is it a combo of both?
I honestly, because lifting is something I enjoy doing probably more than anything, because it's it comes easiest. And I'm being completely transparent with you when I say that. It's not that, of course I could challenge myself,
Right.
but let's pretend for a moment I have some things kind of going on in my head, business wise, or,
Right.
whatever. When you are balancing off, two hands, your body, and you're lowering yourself down into one arm, you can't afford to have anything distract you. You can't, you have to be 100%. And so lifting is a very forgiving thing for me when I'm performing that versus the balance. Now, the balance has shown me a lot more purported reward in terms of, like, for example, I mean, look, 6 to 8 hours a day, as I said, you train as an acrobat, you get good enough, you do that for, however many years, and then you create an act, and
Right.
you together with choreography. And, if you're a competitor, right, and you go and you do a competition, you're going to pay $150 a night for a hotel. So maybe that's two hotel nights. You're going to pay for your NPC card. You're going to pay for your registration fee. If you don't already have a coach, you probably have to pay for the coach. And so, you're, and if you're a female competitor in the suits, which are astronomically expensive,
Right.
Great.
you have all these expenses. So, but you're not going to beat up your body like you would an acrobat. Now, the key thing about what it is that I do, it's like, at this stage of my life, I want to be able to, I like being paid to perform. I like being good enough where they said, there's an international circus festival, we're going to pay you for 2 weeks to go to Europe. I've never been to Europe in my entire life.
Right.
You mean you're going to fly me to Europe so I can do the performing arts for 2 weeks and learn about a country I've never, seen? And so the reward of something that I'm not really, it's not as forgiving because it comes a little easier. The balance has hands down given me so much more from that side of things. It's opened up a lot more because it's just simply more novel.
Right.
See, in Europe, gymnastics and acro sport, it's very prevalent over. Circus arts are very prevalent over there. Here, it's the reverse. It's baseball, football, basketball. These are the big things that I like to celebrate. I'm a novelty. I'm kind of I'm the balance guy, or
Simply put.
Casey's students, they call me Steve Atlas, the handstand man, and they made me a shirt of me in a handstand. It says Steve Atlas, handstand man.
Nice.
Yeah. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. So, here's a fun question that I like to ask people. Who would play your character in a biography?
Oh boy. God.
Hunter usually nails this one.
I
know,
usually do, but I don't know if I could do it.
I know he's been thinking about it for you all day.
I haven't this time.
Like what actor would play me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's typically what we're going for here.
Yeah, so they come to you and say, we're we're gonna film a Steve Atlas biography. You have a say in who plays your character. Who would you choose? Dude, you're too jacked. There's nobody jacked enough to play Steve Atlas.
You can't find it. I'm just looking at names here at this point. Steve, you're gonna have to play yourself.
You're gonna have to play yourself. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
You're unique. You're
Sure.
one of a kind. No, yeah,
Really?
dude, that's a hard question.
That's a hard one.
him,
I haven't. Yeah, I can't even find anybody or think of anybody.
Yeah, I mean, geez, I'm trying to come up with somebody, and I got nothing.
My mother.
Go ahead.
My mother said she actually dropped John Cena's name.
Oh, geez,
And I was like,
you're
really?
way better looking than John Cena.
Yeah.
Way.
Let's not do that. And
Yeah,
I'm sure you're a better actor.
Yeah, and you're a better actor.
Yeah, I don't know where he got that. But, I love my mom, so that's okay.
Oh,
Right.
dude, I'd say we gotta if we put Ryan Reynolds on the sauce for a long time and taught him some balance, maybe.
That guy. The problem with him playing, so Ryan Reynolds, he's so witty in everything that he does, and that's just how he is.
Yeah.
Like, I have so much adoration for that guy and respect, but I'll tell you what. One of the things that look, man, after all these years, the people that I work with and the people that I've had the privilege of working with, the honesty and the transparency of connecting with people and really just wanting to have a sincere building of a relationship where you can watch and take interest in a person authentically without pretense. That's where I'm at in my life. With a guy like Ryan Reynolds, it would become a parody. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's fair.
The acting style doesn't fit.
That's very true. It wouldn't be accurate.
But he's too good.
Dude, you're a William Wallace character right there.
That's exactly right.
Or they could have casted you for the 300. That would have been epic. That'd have been epic.
I mean, a sequel needs to be in the books.
Yeah, I think that you could overtake Gerard Butler headlining that puppy, man.
Well, yeah, that was. I love that movie, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, dude,
beautiful movie.
Just absolutely fantastic. Yeah. So, I'll ask you one final question, and then I'll let you close us out here. But this is kind of a more serious, deeper question that I like to ask. Who's your top two role models in your life, and I guess people that have influenced you to be who you are today?
The one gentleman I had already mentioned, the Father Stuart Wilson, definitely. The other, I'm not including family with this. I just want to talk about, it's split between two other people. One of them taught me a lot of skills, and the other one taught me a lot more about life. So there's a trinity here, guys. There's Father Wilson he was always my spiritual example that helped me bring me a lot closer to Christ. The other one is Ido Portal. He really opened the door. He was a major influence for me. Without him, I would not be where I'm at. And I don't care how that sounds. It's just the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And my martial arts teacher, Chris Charnos, I don't know that he really understands the totality of how he's affected me in the best possible way. And I hope he watches this, because I want him to know. In life, you meet people that are truly special because they build you in a way that prepare you for life.
Yeah.
I told him recently, I said, I use maybe 1% of the martial arts that you taught me.
Yeah.
And I use 99% of the philosophy to keep me from having to use that one deadly percent.
Yeah.
So, and it's the appreciation lessons. It's all of the life learning lessons and stuff like that. And so because people have been very good with me, Ito was a skills guy. He taught me a lot of skills, of which have influenced me directly. Chris has taught me a lot about how to work with the ebbs and flows of life. And Father Wilson has taught me what people are supposed to mean. And we see the flesh and we see the bones and we see the skin, but there's a soul underneath all that. And it's really easy to kind of forget that in our world that we live in, especially nowadays where everything's so divisive and polarizing. But Eric, we have to. So the beautiful part, and this is kind of coming full circle, is, and maybe leading on to the closing sentiments, I suppose, is what's beautiful about the things that we do in our occupation, our line of work, is that we have an opportunity to break down an individual's reluctances, fears, apprehensions, and boundaries, where they can become authentically vulnerable. And you become a part of that person's circle when you help them build themselves back. You become a part of their journey in their inner circle.
Absolutely.
And for me, there is nothing more beautiful than that, because that is using the gift that you've been given.
Absolutely.
It's that, you can't really put a price tag on it, and you can't really, when a person says, I could not have done this without you. And by that, I mean, you've made me a better person. It's like, dude, what do you say to that?
Right.
Yeah.
I made you a better person. It's like, it's one thing to lift certain things or to be able to balance or something like that. But when you can touch somebody, so, a good trainer can replicate skills in their students. A good teacher will move souls.
Yeah. I agree. 100%. 100%. No, I can't thank you enough for being on, Steve. I think that, you've got an incredible story and an incredible talent, and we're just honored to have you, man. I can't tell you thank you enough. I'm excited to get this out. I tell Hunter this all the time, but I think, this podcast just keeps getting, better and better. And, I think that you're, definitely taking us to the next level with this episode. I think that it's been absolutely incredible. So I just want to say thank you, and I'm looking forward to everything that the future holds for you, and hopefully we're able to work together in the future.
Gentlemen, the honor was all mine. I really appreciated the opportunity to share my story. Thank you so much for the invitation. And, I connected with you, Eric, the moment we started to talk. It was like, I like this guy.
Yeah.
I didn't know about your hunting, and I didn't know about him. Then I started connecting and all these, like, this is like the brother I was supposed to have,
That's right. That's right.
So man, there's going to be a lot more conversations for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to those conversations, and we will talk soon, my man. And thank you so much.
All right, brother. Much love. Peace.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Power of Lifting podcast. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. For more content like this, follow Eric Cafferty and the Mecca Gym on all social media platforms.